Welcome, everybody. Steve Burton here at Scale to Sell. This is podcast episode number 42, how benchmarking your company's 401k could optimize performance with Mike Tarr. Mike, anyway, welcome to our podcast here. Glad to have you in. And first, before we get started talking about the 401k plans, I generally think in just an overall nature, I think that there's been a failure here that to not enhance or take advantage of the opportunity with the 401k. And from a couple different standpoints, but a little bit about yourself first, and then we'll get into some of the questions that we have.
Sure. Good afternoon, and thank you for having me too, Steve. Yes, so my name's Michael Tarr. As Steve said, I'm located in Nashville, Tennessee. I work for a company called Royal Fund Management. We are an SEC registered investment advisory firm. We manage a couple $1 billion, 11,000 plus accounts, and we build unique offerings since we are a boutique firm. And with the regulatory action that came through from the Secure Act 2.0. One of those was based on our active management and seeking to help individuals. We built our 401k maneuver PEP and our 401k maneuver MEP, which we think is second to none in the marketplace too.
Kind of the wave of the future, so to speak, too, right, Mike?
Yeah, there's a lot of different plans out there, and a lot of them are built differently. And we had a couple of main focuses. One of those was to take on the day-to-day operations of the plan from the plan sponsor. The second was to provide a lot of protection for those plan sponsors, being that we have 3 fiduciaries in our plan. And the second most important part was that we don't have commissions or upcharges or 12B1 fees and other hidden agendas behind our plan, because we wanted our PEP to be designed to help the participant grow. And that's how we do better as a company too.
Back in the day when somebody went to, and this is fresh in my mind because I just recorded a radio show and was talking about this. Back in the day, if you went to work for a major corporation like an IBM or any other major corporation, all of them they kind of kept you anchored to the company with a pension, a defined benefit plan, where the company funded in an amount of money based on your role and your, with the industry and whatever other factors. They funded in enough money into your plan. And then when you left after 20, 25, 30 years, based on whatever the rules were there, you had a paycheck for life. Well, companies started figuring out that, hey, people are living 20, 30 years in retirement, sometimes more. And it wasn't great for them to pay you for 25 years while you're working there and maybe another 25 years retired. So they started phasing out defined benefit plans, and the 401k, that defined contribution plan, came about. Now you, the employee, had become the portfolio manager. You had to become hey, am I putting enough money into this thing to retire, and then figure out when you could exit the business on the right time. But what are some of the common issues? I mean, I think that's what got you intrigued in working within the 401k space too, where there's not enough guidance. We talk to many companies and employees, and they all have the same thing. Our plan stinks, and they sometimes use some other language that's not a little bit more colorful. But what are the common issues that you have with the 401ks out there that are currently being managed in just a general nature, Mike?
As Steve, you and I both have seen over plans that we've taken over recently, and recent conversations we had last week, as a matter of fact, where the HR director and the owner of a particular company said that, we haven't seen our advisor in 2.5 years. And a lot of retirement plan companies, they come in and they promise investment advice, and they promise to educate your employees, and that's usually, in 90% of the time or more, it's shortly lived. And if that's the case, and one of the plans that we took over, Steve, that one of the plan sponsors there said that, I showed them that 98% of all their funds were in target date funds, which were the highest fees they were paying with inside that plan. So when building our 401k maneuver PEP, we wanted to provide active management, whether the company had 1 employee or it had 3,500 employees or more. And so by doing that, we built our plan around our 401k maneuver active management, which can provide real investment advice based on what we're doing with our current book of business and what's really going on in the economy, as opposed to just sitting back and hoping things get better and sitting in a target date fund, which is designed by age, which is not fit for everybody. So, that being said, being really involved with the participants, helping them out for other needs that they have, and being able to open up an open architecture of real financial planning is what really separates us all apart.
If you think about it, somebody goes to work for a company and sometimes they stay there just for a little bit of time, but those ones that get there eventually, maybe they get into their 40s, into their 50s, and now they've been in the same situation for 10 or 20 years. If they're not 59 and a half, Mike, they get, like you mentioned, very little guidance. Nobody's calling them to, hey, meet in with them at least annually to go, hey, you're getting ready to retire in 10 years' time. You should be doing this and that. Let's look at situations and see if you're in the right account. So some of the issues are just based on not having access to an advisor, so to speak, or whatever. And then on other issues, so that's one of them. And what does, if benchmarking, that's a common term, and some people probably haven't heard it. But when you benchmark a 401k, what does that mean?
So the way the rule reads between the Department of Labor and ERISA is the plan needs to be fair and reasonable, and it needs to be in the best interest of the participants. And that being said, having a plan that's built on really high fees, hidden structures is not in the best interest. And a lot of times, plan sponsors they don't really realize what else is available in the marketplace. And a lot of times we see they did not realize the amount of fees and the different hands in the pockets of the participants and pulling monies out for certain things that they said they were doing. And so that being said, in benchmarking a plan, in a plan that's over 100 employees, you file for a long form, and you have an investment committee, and that investment committee is in charge of making sure that plan is fair and reasonable. And they're supposed to meet on a quarterly basis. They record meetings of this as well. So you're supposed to benchmark your plan and have something on file that if Department of Labor walked in, then it shows that you are having a plan which is fair and reasonable. So by benchmarking your plan, even against our 401k maneuver PEP, we provide you with documentation that is absolutely free of charge. And a lot of times we open up a lot of things that they didn't know. And we show a lot of ways that the cost could be cut down drastically. You could have a plan that's better and outperforming. But most importantly, you're going to have this on file for compliance reasons, which the Department of Labor wants you to have it on file. So why not allow us to do it for free?
So a company that's under 100 employees, are they required to get this done on an ongoing basis? And how does it change when you get to that 100 employee mark?
So, as I said, the plan's supposed to be fair and reasonable and in the best interest of those employees, whether you have one employee or over 100 employees. And when you get over that 100 employee mark, then you are supposed to have an investment committee and file a long form. If you're under that 100 employee mark, then you're filing a short form, but it doesn't mean that you're getting away with something. The plan needs to be fair and reasonable. And such as plans that we're looking at now that might be at 65 or 68 employees and they're advancing up and going over that 100 mark. Well, they need help in compliance and navigating the compliance world of a 401k. And I always make this statement. It's very simple. If you're going to go get a haircut, you don't go to an auto mechanic, you go to a barbershop or a beauty salon. And so that's what we provide. We provide real guidance, real understanding of the laws and the rules behind the Department of Labor and ERISA, and help keeping you out of any type of problems where if a plan audit was to come in the door. And that's also keeping with our three fiduciaries too.
As plan audits, they don't happen very often, but I would assume if when they do happen, it can be disruptive, a lot of man hours getting things prepared, and probably some anxious times as well. And anyway, we understand the employers in many cases just do the 401k because sometimes they felt like they're obligated to do it because their competitors are doing it, and in other case they want to help out with the employees as well. So there's the benefit to the employer, I guess, is that hey, You've got it benchmarked. You should do it routinely anyway to make sure you're being fair and reasonable to your employees and having the best opportunity. What is the benefit? What is the benefit to the employee? I guess just to make sure that, if there's a better opportunity out there, or making them aware of fees that maybe hidden fees maybe they weren't aware of. But what's the benefit to the employee?
So, one of the biggest things in the Secure Act 2.0 when they pass it, I think it's a big thing since, we look out for the best interests of the participants and the plan sponsor themselves, is that they passed provisions which allowed employees to and have an in-service to transfer and distribution age 50 years old. Now, age 50 is not all of it. It's part of the vested balances. They also have a provision which allows the age 55, which is somebody that had transferred out to be able to roll that to individual IRAs too. And then the age 59 and a half, of course, which is standard. So I think we're the only plan that I know of that when we built our 401k maneuver PEP, we allowed that age 50 provision. And what that does is we also have the in-service transfer age at age 50 as well. So a downturn in the market, such as the tariff trade, unquote, they call it, a downturn in that gives we have the ability to be able to do real financial planning and roll those monies over into a Roth account or do a Roth conversion with inside of our plan. We also have the ability where they could roll part of those monies out into individual IRA with other investments or other strategies they want to as well. So by looking out for the best interest of those participants and being able to be hands-on and give them real guidance of what's going on is a huge plus. And just like this plan I spoke to before that we met with last week, I mean, the owner and the HR director, they haven't seen their advisor in 2.5 years. And they were asking us on that call, can you help us with real financial planning? That's the biggest thing we bring is being fiduciaries.
That in-service transfer, there's some financial services guys watching the podcast, there's business owners. We had I believe it was that same business owner you're referring to. They emailed me and said, or texted me, one of the two, and said, can you do an in-service transfer at 55 years old? Well, an in-service transfer, for those of you that don't know, is you're at a company, and you at 59 and a half, it's commonplace that most companies will allow you to roll part of or all that 401k into your own portfolio, whatever that lineup looks like. And you have a lot more options. In many cases, you're getting a lot more access to an advisor or somebody there to help you out with your money. But what you're saying here, Mike, instead of 59 and a half, we're rolling it back to 50 per that Secure Act 2.0. So that's a
Yes.
good, so greater access for the employee, more guidance right there, the ability to move the money sooner. And, because the 401k, even the best of 401k platforms are limited in their scope and options, target date funds, and those types of things. But when you get away from the company, sometimes you have a lot more options. I think that's a benefit too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, the age 55 rule that that person was speaking about, it's if you've left your job and 55 years old, you could roll those monies out. But the age 50 is for in-service transfers. So somebody that's, working for a company, maybe a business owner that has 60% of the assets are in the 401k under his name. And that being said, if the fees are extremely high, usually that person is paying the most of the administration to where we do a lot of fixed costs to make it fair and reasonable across the board. But we also give that business owner or an individual employee that's age 50 the option to be able to do those in-service transfers, roll those monies into Roth accounts and avoid for a tax planning purposes, and also roll them to other outside strategies. Or if nothing else, they might want to annuitize part of their book as well. But like I said, I think we're the only plan that I know of that has an age 50, and every plan that we build has that provision. The law says you can have two. One of those can be 50, and the next one has to be above 55. So we put the 59 and a half number because from 50 to 59, it covers it all. So yeah, it's a huge benefit. And when people hear about that, it's something they're very interested in.
As part of the Secure Act 2.0, when people are starting just now, these businesses are starting to now understand that there's opportunities out there. I think that many of them in the past, Mike, when they rolled them over to another company, unless somebody approached them, they just assumed what they had was, hey, it is what it is. But I think the eyes are being open in a lot of cases. It's going to take a while because this opportunity here is relatively new, but I think it's going to be the wave of the future, something that's more, better access to advisors and the other rules and benefits of a platform like the 401k maneuver. I mean, in that it's just really getting started. But I mean, some companies just think they're stuck in they're so busy in the day-to-day operation they don't give it much thought, even when employees are beefing at them sometimes. But do you think this? I think this opportunity is going to catch on across the country, don't you think, over the next 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, I think every plan's going to go to a PEP model or a MEP model at some point. They're expecting a $3 trillion transfer of monies going over. And if you think about the fiduciaries and the day-to-day operations, that current plan sponsor is spending, well, let's say, I mean, I hear it all the time, 60 plus hours getting ready for a plan audit, where we have 278 payroll integrations, and we also have the way 360 connections and the way to be able to extract that data for the year-end data collection too. So we're saving the 60 hours on time that an employer would spend to be able to do other things to make money as opposed to being burdensome. We're taking the emails from the record keepers. We're doing all the TPA back of the house to document compliance. And we're also doing the plan audit at no extra cost inside of our plan. That number itself for a plan could be north of $25,000, and the average has gone up from that 5 to 7 to $10,000 in out-of-pocket expense costs. So that being said, we take almost all the responsibility away from that plan sponsor, and we're handling those year-end compliance situations they have to take. And the other side, you mentioned about doing a plan audit. If a company is inside of our current PEP, and a Department of Labor wants to audit that plan, they have to come to us. They don't go and take the burden on that plan sponsor. They have to walk in our door. We'll spend the 6 months or 6 weeks or whatever it may be, depending on the size of the plan, to provide all the documentation to that auditor. So yes, I think everybody's going to move towards this model, but it's finding the right one that has the right connections. And I think what we built in looking at this, we wanted to take on the responsibility, the day-to-day operations off the plan, make it as streamlined as possible. And therefore, when you do that, your phone doesn't ring.
I'm looking at your title, Michael, and underneath of it says Director of the 401k Maneuver and MEP and PEP Plan Services. Really quickly, explain what the difference between a MEP and a PEP is.
Sure. So a MEP is a multiple employer plan, and these were allowed before the Secure Act, but it had to be association based. So if it was all pipe fitters or some type of a union, that was how it got away, and that was called a closed-in MEP, an association based. A MEP is a multiple employer plan that allows plans to participate in one large plan, and everybody can have their own restrictions, whether they want a safe harbor plan or they want eligibility rules sit differently. Everything can be customized. It allows you to be under one group. Usually that's smaller plans for us. It's very affordable. We have great software. And then when you move into the PEP model, which is called a pooled employer plan, is built for kind of larger plans that have, $1.5 million, $2 million in assets and up. And it allows you to be involved in one large plan. And so we're doing one large 5,500 at the end of the year. We're doing one large plan audit. And we're also in that plan, we're also doing all the fiduciary responsibility and the day-to-day operations of that plan. And I can't take away from our 338, which also is benchmarking our investment lineup. Speaking about cost, we have 41 funds in our investment lineup currently. Our average investment expense is 0.24%. And that speaks for itself that we don't have a plan such as one we're looking at now with another firm that has 62 investments and their average investment expense is 43.5%. So we're looking out for the best interest. We want to have the best in class and the best performance of a fund in our investment lineup too.
Lastly, as we're wrapping it up here, I appreciate you being on with us today. If somebody wants to have their plan benchmarked, right? How much does that cost the employer to get it done?
It's absolutely free, and the documents we need is a set of 5. We can provide those documents or list those documents that we need to do that benchmark. And all of those documents are on your employee self-service portal at your currently retirement plan, and we can even help you show you where they're at. And we take those documents, we'll do a thorough analysis, we'll disclose to you how your plan is set up and the fee structures involved, and then we'll show you the difference in your current plan versus what it would look like in our pooled employer plan. Really, you have nothing to lose. It's absolutely free. You can have it on file. You've got it for compliance reasons, if nothing else.
That's perfect. Perfect. Guys, if you want to check that out and get your 401k plan benchmarked, or maybe even want to talk about setting one up if you don't have one in place, that's the way government's wanting to do. They want everybody to be saving for retirement, which I think is a good thing. If you want to do that, go to scaletosell.com/discovery. We'll make some of that information what you need to have. It's not that difficult. And it's part of the employee retention. When you create a culture where the employer is actually looking out for the employee, you create a culture where the employees don't bounce around and go up and down the street. And I had this conversation with an employer just recently, Mike, where I saw studies where it costs 25 to 200% to replace one employee. To do the math there, you pay them $100,000 a year, 25,000 to 200,000 to replace them. So improve your culture, and this is just part of that. Guys, this is Steve Burton here. Mike Tarr, we appreciate you today. Scale to Sell, podcast number 42. Check us out on our YouTube channel and our website. We'll see you next time. Thanks, Mike. We'll catch you on the other side. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Scale to Sell with Adam Burton and Steve Burton. Click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. Visit our website at www.scaletosell.com or give us a call at 757-313-4080. And don't forget to click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Scale to Sell. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing, tax, legal, or other advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified professionals with any questions you may have regarding your personal or professional plans. Prior results do not guarantee a similar outcome.